Hello, everyone. I have been gone for a hot minute, and that's because life gets in the way of doing anything and all things constructive. I'm here. I have coffee, water. My head really hurts. So, you know what I thought to myself? I thought, yes, let's make a video. That's the greatest idea you've had all week, Alex. Yes, do that. So here I am. Today, I'm covering more figure drawing stuff as far as the visuals go, so nothing new there. But I thought I would talk about using negative space in drawings, as in how to map out things actually using negative space. Because it was something I first heard in a book, or yes, heard in a book, read in a book by Boris Vallejo, and I didn't quite understand it. Like, I read the text and comprehended the text, but I didn't quite understand what they meant. So, for me, in drawing, it's always much easier for me to think of things in terms of outlines. I don't know why. Like, the people who can manipulate shapes in space a lot easier than I do, bless them, I can't do it. I'm getting better. I'm practicing really hard, but it's still not my strong suit. So I always looked at outlines and forming the shapes via outlines as opposed to thinking of the mass of the shape itself. So especially in quick gesture drawings like this, you can see I still do a lot of things like in just lines or in just outlines. Like the arm you're looking at right now on that quick 30-second sketch is now reduced down to 15 seconds because I double time this. All of that is based upon a line wherever I feel like the bone would be pretty much in the arm of the figure. In terms of thinking outside of that and looking into negative space, what I mean by that is, like in the one that's currently being drawn, like the space between the arm and the figure and the kind of shape that takes. And it's the art of drawing something that isn't actually there by drawing the vacuum of space that it leaves, which sounds incredibly complicated, which is why it took me about 100,000 friggin' years to even try and kind of understand it. So, moving on to slightly longer drawings, which will probably be 30 seconds on here, because I think these are the 1-minute ones. As you can see, still working on like outlines of things, but the thing about working with just outlines or just shapes and just thinking of the solid things in your drawing is that a lot of the time the masses, at least in my mind, they don't reference against each other correctly. Because whenever you're drawing, you're having to measure the kind of mass and shape of something that is there on the page, if there's anything, against whatever's in your head and try to make the two match up. Which is why a lot of the times you'll see drawings with like big head syndrome, where it's like, it's very obviously started with the head first, which isn't a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. And then the rest of the body kind of followed and just tapers and gets smaller and smaller and smaller. I'm guilty of that as well. And my assumption is that, you know, it's partially based around this fact that you're just, you use the head to draw the shoulders, and then you use the shoulders to draw the arms and the torso, and then you use the arms and the torso to draw the hips, and then so on and so forth. And if they keep getting smaller without referencing back to that original head size, therein lies the problem. So, alright, looking at, I think this one's going to be a slightly longer one. Yes, I'm on my third layer. Oh, if anyone's wondering, I drew this about 100,000 years ago, but the way that I can tell what it is usually the way that my gesture drawings work is I do the 30-second sketches on one layer, I do the 1-minute sketches on a second layer, and I keep moving them up and reducing the opacity to kind of replicate that effect that you'll see in figure drawing classes where someone will use the same piece of paper for the entire class, which I can't do in real life because, well, I can, but I don't feel like it turns out nearly as well. The entire purpose is to get you to stop caring about what it looks like, because you can barely see what it looks like, and to get you to focus on whatever it is that you're immediately drawing, which is great and all, but I feel like that emphasizes the figuring out how not to care about what you're drawing, as opposed to emphasizing that you should be learning kind of whatever it is that you're drawing via shapes. So both are good lessons, but I'm veering towards the actual drawing sort of thing. And I was also wrong. I think these are the one-minute gesture drawings, so ignore everything I just said. But anyway, with negative spaces, the ones I typically look for are the ones between the shoulders and the head. Typically it's some form of a triangle or angle of some kind. And the ones between the arms and the body, and then usually between the legs and around kind of where the joints are. Hands are still a massive mystery to me. They're still very, very difficult, but looking at negative space with those has helped more than anything, which is I think why I finally started kind of getting into realizing, oh, this has merit and this is what he meant. So sitting here drawing torso, doodle doodle, doodle doodle, all that bit. And the downside to having drawn this forever ago is I don't remember what it actually ends up looking like, because I didn't bother to watch this before I actually started recording. It takes some of the fun out of it for me, honestly, if I rewatch it right before. I like to fly off the cuff with these things. But this is one of those drawings, now I remember, that is particularly difficult because when I talk about looking at negative space, you have to look at the space around the figure in its entirety. The figure is so closed in on itself and so collapsed that you have to think of that negative space around it and kind of look at the shape it makes. And then the other thing is that in this, it's particularly difficult because I was having to look at the negative space between like the chin and where the arm is, which is an area of space that's backed by the torso. So my problem is that I get very, very distracted pretty easily, and I love bones and I love bone structure and I love skulls and all of this, so I'll get distracted from drawing the meat of things to like draw either bones or like tendons or all those like hard edges in the body. So it gets very difficult for me whenever arms are, say, in front of a torso, because I get very distracted with the torso or the shape of the arm, and I don't think of how the two relate to each other. So, in looking at this one, the other negative spaces that I had to look at were the spaces between the two arms. Sorry, for a second I thought my cat came in the room somehow, that I'd left the door open, but it was actually a pair of pants that tried to attack my feet. So, apologies. Okay, back to what I was saying. The space between the two arms is a kind of difficult area, and that was a pain to have to try and replicate. And on to the next drawing, which hopefully is more spread out so I can muse a little bit more. Oh, that's another thing I never really understood. The line of action. A lot of places describe it a lot of different ways. Places are like, oh, it should direct movement. Oh, it should follow the spine. Oh, it should... I've had the most success in trying to make it follow the spine, but it's also not gospel once I get past roughly the shoulder blades. It's more just a thing of, hey, here's the spine in relation to the figure. Whenever I was first drawing, I always thought it was like, oh yes, everything must align to this line of action perfectly, and if it doesn't, then you're messing something up, which, as you can imagine, led to some difficulties, because it's supposed to be one quick animated line on paper. So, and this pose is actually great for looking at negative space, because you have the spaces in between the two pieces of the arms, the torso and the top of the leg. You have this shape made by the legs with, I think he's kneeling on the other leg, so you have to look at that. And What's really helped me in trying to make sure that all of my actual pieces align with each other is thinking of those spaces as actual solid masses as opposed to being air. Like, kind of picture the figure trapped in jelly, or like Han Solo and Carbonite, you know, all that bit, and just picture that and kind of draw around it. It seems incredibly backwards when you first start doing it, and it doesn't seem to make any sense at all. And I'm still not the greatest at doing it, but it does help. And it also helps kind of take care of that pieces not being the same size syndrome, because those spaces connect all of those pieces together. Like in drawing that negative space in between the arm, the leg, and the torso, you have to look at the arm, the leg, and the torso all together and how they relate to each other, as opposed to just doing one or the other. And this should be the last drawing, because we have about 5 minutes left in the video, so this is the 10-minute piece. And another thing to keep in mind with figure drawing that took me a long while to figure out, or accept, I guess, not figure out. When you're doing these figure drawings, keep in mind the people who can do like a fully fleshed out figure, or pretty close to a fully fleshed out figure in 10 minutes, have been doing this for years. Like years and years and years and years and years. And even then, it'll be exceptionally rough compared to a lot of their other work. Figure drawing is not really meant to be perfect by any means. It's meant, what I use it for is to kind of wake up my brain and warm up for drawing. Drawing's a lot like any other physical activity. You kind of have to wake up your brain and get used to doing it before you try to actually do something you care about. Otherwise, what you care about will inevitably be more of a pain than you want it to be. Also, if you're doing digital figure drawing, if you can use the tools in the time allotted, use the like warp, movement, all that crap tools. If Da Vinci could have done it, he would have. So I'm gonna hate looking this up for the referencing part of my thing, but there used to be, or there is, a technique where you can transpose a landscape reflected in a mirror onto a canvas and just kind of trace over it, and a lot of old paintings have that. So anytime somebody tries to tell you to work smart, or to work hard, not smart, tell them to fuck off and just go ahead and do what works for you. I'm not advocating for tracing. Don't steal other people's work. But if you have a reference photo, you're trying to figure out the shapes and you can't do it, pull up another layer, stick the reference photo underneath it, and then sketch over it. A lot of the times you'll realize that, oh, I totally didn't realize that the jaw actually goes that way. Or, oh, the arm actually makes that shape. That doesn't make sense because I'm used to thinking of the arm as like two by four stuck together. You have to account for lens distortion and that kind of thing, but it really can help. Just don't trace and try to pass anybody's work off as your own. But if you're sitting here tracing a photo, trying to figure out how shapes and masses work, dude, that's fine. Just keep it for your personal files. Like I said, work smart, not hard. It will save you so much time, effort, and frustration in the end. Anyway, as far as negative space in this goes, there's two underneath the arms, and I'm noticing right now that I know for a fact that, I guess it'd be the right hand leg if you were the model left hand leg looking at it here, is way too short. It's not right at all, which is fine. I mean, this isn't supposed to be perfect. But a lot of that could be remedied probably if I was looking closer at the negative spaces in between the two pieces of that leg, or that leg and the other leg. or even that leg and the arm. So it's something I'm still working on, but it seems to help, so I wanted to pass it along, and it seemed a relatively safe subject to put my first video back with. I am hoping to get back into doing these once a week, because I do enjoy doing them. I find them incredibly relaxing to watch and also to ramble over. And the internet is kind enough to have a space for me to do it. And all of you show up and are great and listen to me. So I hope you get something out of it, or just enjoy watching the drawing process. I mean, whatever works. Take what works, leave what doesn't. Alright, so we're wrapping up, last 20 seconds. Like, subscribe, send to your friends, your foes, whatever you want to do, if you enjoyed this, and hopefully it was of some use to you. As always, it's chaos, be kind, and happy drawing.